5-Minute Professor, and today's lesson is on fantasy baseball. I know Bob's excited. According to Forbes magazine, over 11 million people play fantasy baseball. Now, this was surpassed 5 or 6 years ago by fantasy football, which now has over 20 million participants. Fantasy baseball is a much bigger commitment. Football is only 18 weeks and takes, well, when I do it, 15, 30 minutes a week. Total time investment, under 10 hours. Plus however long your drunk fest football draft is. Fantasy baseball, very different. I spend about 10 to 15 minutes at a minimum daily from April to September, half a year. 10 to 15 minutes a day, every day. This is about a 30-hour commitment. And on top of that, instead of just listening for my team, the Red Sox, I'm listening for 10 different games because I've got players spread out all over the league with games that start at 1 and start at 7 and start at 9 and start at 10 on the West Coast. The idea of fantasy baseball came out of discussions about whether the 1918 Red Sox could have beaten the 1948 Yankees, which is obvious when you get right down to it because, well, the 1918 Red Sox would have been 70, so they would have lost. Sorry. The earliest fantasy games were board games in the 1960s with names like, and I had one of these, a Stratomatic. They would be based on old stats and the likelihood that a batter who hit 250 would get a hit once every 4 times he came up to bat. Jack Kerouac, yes, hipster supreme Jack Kerouac created his own version of fantasy baseball when he was a kid. So did a much younger 5-minute 6th grader. But that was in the early 70s. The modern idea of fantasy baseball, where a team of players is pooled together by a manager, we'll call him a manager, and then followed through their actual stats during the season, is called rotiserrie. Have you ever wondered why it's called a rotisserie league? The name rotisserie league actually comes from the New York restaurant La Rotisserie Française, where the first players met and had lunch during the summer of 1980. Now, the original teams followed players that were selected through a draft in a variety of categories through the season. Now, a more modern version, as opposed to rotisserie, is head-to-head. Every week, my team, which is the Wunderkind, faces off against a different team in the league, and in our league, and I do a free league, we compete in runs, home runs, stolen bases, RBIs, batting average, and, in order to add value for better fielders and middle infielders, credit for being part of a double play. Pitchers win points for wins and strikeouts and saves and low ERA and whip, which is walks and hits per innings pitched, so that we can carry middle relievers to holds. So each week we compete in up to 12 different statistical categories, a chance to get as many as 12 points in each one of these categories. And of course, each team matches up differently. And at the end of the season, the number of weeks that you won is what's important. In rotisserie, it would be individual stat categories that mattered. Today, it's easy to follow the stats of every player, even during the games while they're being played, because of the instant access of computers. But early rotisserie players, these were legitimate stat geeks. They had to track their own stats by reading the box scores in the newspapers and keeping track. Dugout Derby was an early 1989 statistical group that was printed in a dozen newspapers or so in the bigger cities to pool together the numbers to make it easier for fantasy players. Now, I have always felt that baseball was the perfect sport for fantasy. There's so many statistical points. There's 162 games. There's 2.7 on average pitches for every at-bat. There's 54 at-bats in a game. There's just a great amount of information. And that's what makes fantasy baseball so great. Perceptum, quispium, damnitium. Learn something, damn it. Play ball. I'm the 5-Minute Professor, and thank you very much for listening to today's lesson. If you have any comments at all, please put them in the comments section down below. And of course, like it and subscribe to the channel. But most important, if you liked it, if you commented, and if you subscribed, tell your friends. Perceptum, quispium, damnitium. Learn something, damn it.